Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Zahanim binti Osman and my metric number is BG18110208.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Razmi bin Kamal from the Suftaja group. My matrix number is BG181109297.
Hi everyone, I'm Dineshwari Ravichandran from HG20 BG18110227 and I'm the leader of the group Suftaja.
Okay, first is introduction. Islamic banking, like conventional currency, is covered by Islamic law, as well as industry regulation. As a result, it is extremely tightly controlled. Aside from not charging interest, commercial finance must adhere to a set of guidelines, included ensuring in the project they sell to consumer are halal in accordance with Islamic law. Because money does not appreciate in value time, asking for remuneration in the form of income for lending money to anyone is prohibited and not permitted in Islamic financial institution. We work with investors who only have account with Islamic financial institution. Okay, we move to the problem statement. The problem statement is a fixed interest will be used to calculate the margin. The point is that the entire producer is similar to taking out an interest-bearing loan. According to this article, Islamic bank will restructure housing and automatic financing in accordance with Islamic law, eliminating and components of usury in the base interests of both parties. Any flaws or damage to the house are responsibility of Islamic bank. The purchaser will then go to the bank to resolve the issue. The issue in that bank will not do business with you because your personality rules and standard incomplete with Islamic bank. Okay, next is the objective. The purpose of this study is to investigate some of the numerous factors that influence people's perception of Islamic banking and finance among Malaysian university students. The goal is to investigate common misconceptions about Islamic banking and finance. This study will conduct extensive research into the motivation for misconception about Islamic banking, as well as its impact on aggression and victim. We will look at how different Islamic banking and finance techniques employ to the company. To some extent, the second component of the Islamic economist misconception is correct. Okay, the importance of the study is this study looked at the behavior of people who have misconception about the Islamic banking system. This person has no account is either interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing financial institution. During our survey, we discovered that people attitudes towards the Islamic banking system were extremely strange despite the lack of strong evidence.
For our literature review, we used 21 selected journals to fit in literature review. For example, the recent studies that make an analysis those investors become skeptical on their investment because they are unsure whether the revenue generated on the investment is interest-free or not. These studies are writes by Malik Shahzad Shabir and Awais Rahman in 2018. These studies also we subjected with our main dependent variables, which is perception on misconception in Islamic finance and banking business. Another studies that related with our independent variables, which is Islamic banking for Muslim only, right by Ahmad in 1994. The Islamic banking must take zero interest, equity participation, joint ventures, and profit sharing, so as not to conflict with the practice adopted in the Islamic economic system. From the study right by Ibrahim 2015, he said, special issue based on this circumstance also discussed in many previous studies which address misconception consumer on the argument that Islamic finance are totally distinct from conventional banking or is not Islamic banking a fully Sharia compliance. Then we proceed to the data and methodology. In this part, we structure our data and methodology begins with theoretical framework. The main concept that we centralize in these studies are misconceptions consumer towards discuss issue. According Ajayi 2017, he said, misconceptions refer to a view or opinion that is totally incorrect due to faulty thinking and not proper understanding. So this study, we try to identify consumer view towards Islamic finance and banking business with create a survey from. So this is our conceptual framework. As I mentioned earlier, the three main of our independent variables consist in this study are Islamic banking and finance for Muslim only. Islamic banking use loan concept. Conventional banks are insincere in offering Islamic financial service. For the dependent variables should be perception or misconception towards Islamic finance and banking business among university students. Okay, for the population and sampling, if we see in this table, our sampling around 90 respondents with three main category population, which are banking student, finance students, and non-banking or finance student. This study will point out 90 respondents from various university in Malaysia, but respondents were frequently from University Malaysia Sabah Labuan International Campus, since this study conducted by ourselves from the institution. Not only that, the survey appointed to students from various demographic profile. Then we proceed with the data collection method. Obviously, in this study, we use two types of data collection, which is primary data sources and secondary data sources. For primary data sources, we gain the data from 90 respondents with 25 questions designs, which were divided into three sections. For the secondary data, we apply previous journal to fit in our literature review and another internet sources. Then we move to the last part for research methodology, which are data analysis method. This part plays vital role in extract and interprets the data in selected method. Actually, we use statistical package for social science, which we known as SPSS software, to make analysis on data we collected from the survey. For example, we use statistical tools include frequency tests, reliability tests, factor analysis, linear regression, and chi-square tests.
First part would be the demographic profile of respondent. Second part would be the factor analysis and reliability test. Third part would be the regression analysis, and the last part would be the summary of findings. The first part, demographic profile of respondent. Here we got 5 items, which is gender, age, ethnicity, type of students and also level. When it comes to gender, here we got two categories, which is male and female. Male represented by 63.3% of respondent and female represented by 36.7% of respondent. When it comes to age, we got five category, which is 20 and below years old, which is represented by 18.9% of respondent, 21 years old, which is represented by 6.7% of respondent, 22 years old, which is represented by 11.1% of respondent, 23 years old, which is represented by 47.8% of respondent, and last would be 47 and above, which is represented by 15.6% of respondent. Third item would be the ethnicity. Here we got five category, which is Malay, Indian, Chinese, Sabah native and also Sarawak native. Malay recorded the highest percentage, which is 36.7%, and Sabah native recorded the second highest, which is 33.3%. Indian recorded 25.5% and Chinese recorded 3.3%, and Sarawak native is the least, which is 1.1%. The fourth item would be the type of students. Here we got three type of student, which is banking student, finance student and also non-banking and finance student. When it comes to banking student, they recorded 31.1%, finance student recorded 36.7% and non-banking and finance student recorded 32.2%. When it comes to level of studies, here we got year 1, year 2, year 3 and year 4 and above students. Year 1 and year 2 student recorded the same amount, which is 10%, and year 3 student recorded the highest percentage, which is 57.8%, and year 4 and above student recorded the 22.2%. We move on to the second part, which is factor analysis and also the reliability test. Here, for this survey, exploratory technique was used to summarize the structure of the set of variables. Criterion of the survey would be the factor loading, which is more and equal to 1.0, eigenvalue, which is more and equal to 1.0, and also cumulative explained variance, which is more and equals to 0.60. Research instrument was tested for reliability using Cron-Bunch's coefficient alpha. The Cron-Bunch's alpha value for all dimension is within the range, which is 0.806 to 0.990, exceeding the minimum alpha 0.6. Here I got the table for the dependent variables, which is perception of consumer towards the misconception, Islamic banking and business. Here we got five hypotheses, which is started with I believe there are some investors are being skeptical or unsure whether their revenue generated from investment are subject to Sharia compliant law or not when they invested in Islamic finance and investment plan. And this five hypotheses, which is continued by the variance explained, eigenvalue and Cron-Bunch alpha. When it comes to variance explained, which is 27.17 and eigenvalue is 4.071, Cron-Bunch alpha would be 0.984. We move on to the next part, which is the tables for independent variables. Here we got three independent variables, which is Islamic banking use loan concept. The second would be Islamic banking and finance only for Muslim, and third independent variable would be conventional banks are insincere in offering Islamic financial service. The variance explain, eigenvalue and Cron-Bunch alpha for all three independent variable already stated over here. And here is the third part of the survey, which is regression analysis. As I already explained before, we got three hypotheses, which is first one would be Islamic finance and banking for Muslim only, and the second would be Islamic banking use loan concept, And third hypothesis would be conventional banks are insincere in offering Islamic banking and plan. For the H1, which is hypothesis 1, T is equals to 2.778 and P value is equals to 0.081, and for H2 the T value is 1.710 and the P value is equals to 0.081. For H3 the T value is equals to 6.679 and P value is equals to 0.088, and R square for the survey is equals to 0.985, which is equals to 98.5%, and the F value would be 7.261 and significant at 0.007 level. We move on to the last part of the survey, which is summary of the finding. Here we can clearly see that for hypothesis 1, all the hypotheses which is get the supported by the tested we already tested before. And here we move on to the hypothesis 2 and hypothesis 3. When it comes to hypothesis 2, there is some hypothesis supported and there is some hypothesis were rejected, and same goes to the H3, which is some hypotheses were supported and some hypotheses were rejected.
Okay, so the conclusion is the purpose of this study was to assess student misconception about Islamic banking and finance in Malaysia. This is among the students as a result of using primary data to investigate student perception in Malaysia. This study began with three major variables that contribute to Islamic banking and finance that are not only for Muslim. Islamic banks use the loan concept also, and conventional banks are not sincere in providing Islamic financial plan service. Finally, the study is provided an overview of the misconception of the Islamic banking and finance, as well as the reading material that many people, organizations, and regulatory bodies could use. More research in the field of Islamic banking and finance is expected to be conducted in the future. Thank you so much.